Cancer 21, a prima donna singing. The word prima donna, the words, have become more often used facetiously to take the mickey out of somebody because they're showing off. But a prima donna is really somebody who's worked very hard indeed, rigorously pursuing her intention to become something. And this image is about that. We really do need to apply ourselves to what we want to do with our lives. Would we know it, but the alignment with the soul enables us to become very rich and very impressive and wonderful in our lives. When we are actually able to touch into soul consciousness, we can make the life that we have glorious and wonderful. This is true for anyone. As long as we can actually align with the soul's beingness. So that empowers us, that makes us imaginative, smooth in our operation, timely in our decisions, centered in our sense of self and our principles and practices. All of this occurs when we find how to align with the soul. And the prima donna has done that. She's found the highest within her. That's why she's the first lady, because she's done it. And it can be on the stage or it can be in any field of activity, whatever. You can be the best that you can be. It doesn't matter whether you're better than anyone else specifically, as long as you're the best version of yourself. This is what we're trying to find out here. The other side of this equation, though, is that if you go for it, if you really put yourself on the track of success, then that tends to bring about distortion. That's the tendency, because we're operating in a very dark world here. So any pursuit towards fame and fortune is likely, almost certain, to bring us in the company of other people that are competitive and nasty sometimes and greedy always and so on. We want the attention that goes with this, and so do other people. They want it too. And this competitiveness, this absence of harmony, this inclination to separate rather than to unify. This arises within that field of fame and fortune, in all the fields that we can think of, whether it's sport or music or any entertainment or indeed any political person. So anyone who's actually on the track of making themselves rich and famous are in harm's way. We need to be very careful about this. So when we pursue our own track of excellence to become the most splendid version that we can of ourselves, we have to guard against slipping into a degenerate version of ourselves. And this is best done by having principles. What's your relationship to money? What's your relationship to drug? What's your relationship to sex? These are inevitably tested when you're in that role. If you're clear about these things, then you're safe enough. If you're not, then they will represent a deep, significant vulnerability to you. There's a phrase used and a film made of the idea of selling your soul to the devil. The crossroads, this poor black man meets a very smartly dressed guy in a suit, and he says, "If you sign your soul away, I'll make you into the best musician you can imagine." And that's the film that I remember. It's a very well chosen set of words, that, selling your soul. If you receive money or favors, sexual favors, or the attention of the adoring masses, or whatever, if you receive that, there's a price. And you have to make sure that you're willing to pay the price. That price is the end of normality. As soon as you become famous, you can't go into the shops, into the supermarket, without being recognized. On today's terms, you can't have a Facebook presence without commentary and people disagreeing with you. Sometimes with vitriol, I mean, people really do send dark arrows. Social media is not a safe place to engage with the world. They say nasty things. And they say sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Yes, they will. You don't want people calling you names. It does hurt. It might not cause you bruising on your skin, but it hurts. You need to guard against these things. There are techniques for doing this. The issue here is to do with finding the centered sense of self. Who are you really? Are you really the image, the false image that the public want you to be? Because that's the game. The public want their rock stars to be interestingly dressed, charismatic in their approach to life, a little bit rebellious, very romantic and violent, maybe in the case of rap, or whatever is their glamour. And because the public want that, the public reward that, and that's what makes you famous. That's what makes you rich. At work, you have the same thing. You know, the people at work who have important positions, they represent the same principle to a lesser extent. The lesser beings in the factory or the office look up to these bosses and project their image onto the leaders of what the leaders are and what they should be like. And so the leaders start wearing certain clothes and speak in a certain way and walk in a certain manner. And the leaders actually get shaped by the masses. And this is what you see on stage, isn't it? The singers dress up in order to look the way they are expected to look. That's the end of freedom. And you have sold your soul. Only metaphorically. You can't ever lose the soul, but you lose access to it. During this time on earth, you lose access to it. And without access to the soul, then the temptations of the world are almost unbearable and irrefutable. Most of the stories we see in movies of the lives of famous people, they're all the same stories. They all have difficult relationships that separate inevitably. They all have drug problems and drink problems, and they go into rehab, and they all have crisis of confident moments and so on. It's the same story lived out again and again, and then that's the track you're on if you go for fame and fortune. However, that is the distortion of the principle, and I've spoken about it for a long time because it's mainly what happens. But the principle itself is equated in the Sufi idea of 7 planes of consciousness as the 5th plane, the plane of splendor. When we have attunement, when we can resonate with the soul, when we know what the soul is, what the soul wants in terms of development of qualities, not events. When we can do that, when we can act as though we were aware of ourselves as souls, then what comes out is a very similar energy, but in its light form. And that's the energy of splendor. Splendor is glory, it's wonder, it's awe-inspiring. In the true sense of the word, it's awesome. Splendor. And that's what we're yearning to become. That's why we go for positions of great centered attention. The quality of attention and the quantity of attention that we receive when we're up close, up front and central, that attention is juice. It's very powerful life juice. Without some additional attention, it's unlikely that we could project ourselves up to the next level of consciousness. So the attention that you get when you're in the public eye is powerful, it's empowering, and it's juice, as I say. It's what we want to move on. And yet we have to make sure that the price of success, the price we pay for that attention, is not the soul itself.